Okay, hello and welcome back. This is Meet Roy Assembly Video 3. In this video we are going to be assembling the palm of the hand. And so, at this point, if you received a hand kit or an arm kit, you'll have opened it up. This large 5-packet package should now be assembled. Everything in these 5 packets should be done. So this is gone. And in its place, you should have 4 assembled fingers, similar to this. With each of those fingers, you should have a servo bag that holds the servo, and a little hardware bag that has your leftover hardware for the fingers. You should also have an assembled thumb with the servo attached, and its hardware bag with the 2 screws that hold it onto the hand. So if you are not to this point where you have all your fingers built and you're ready to move on to the palm, I would suggest stopping, going back, and getting all the fingers built so we can move on. Alright, so let's set this stuff aside. Okay, so what we have left is the palm kit and its servo. So we're going to go ahead and open up the parts. I already have one open here. Okay. Since we've been through this a bunch of times, you know the drill. Go ahead and sand out all your parts, get them all prepped. These ones are already all ready. And we're going to separate them out into a couple of groups. First off are all your flat plates here. These large flat plates all are parts of the palm. Along with the bigger plates are these 2 kind of little L and H beams. Those go aside. And then the 2 small wooden tabs here, those go over there too. The black parts go together. These are going to be the wishbone that carries the thumb. And then these parts will either look familiar or you will not have them. These 5 parts are for a wrist pivot. So if you're just building a hand assembly, you will not have these 5 parts. If you're building an arm that has the wrist pivot in it, you'll find these 5 parts. So we're going to, again, set those guys aside. So we're going to set those aside. We'll set the black ones aside. We're going to go ahead and start with the main palm. Now, in my kit here that I'm laying out, you'll see there's 2 of these brackets. Now, your kit will only contain 1 of them. You'll either have the one with the 4 holes for a hand, or you'll have the one with 2 holes and some slots for an arm. This is for the wrist pivot. This is without the wrist pivot. Okay, and then the plates. So first thing we're going to do is I want to lay out all of our little palm plates. So how we assemble these palm plates drives whether we're building a right or a left hand. If you find the one angled plate with the 2 notches in it, this plate is the thumb plate. This is that the thumb connects to. So this one is going to decide, we start with this one is where we go. So I'm going to, as I have been going along, I'm going to continue to build a right hand. So the thumb plate goes on the right. Now it's just a matter of finding the according plates that go with it. If you look at them, obviously the slots go to the top. You can just basically take the plates and kind of lay them up against each other, and you'll see this upper line here will be a nice clean line. So I can tell that this plate, if I push it, oh, there it goes. So if you flip them around and find the plate that kind of lines up, that's the ones you're looking for. So you got this one. Now next, obviously, is this plate. And if you just kind of lay it over there, you'll see that it continues the line up top. And then finally is the pinky plate. Now, one of the first things that you want to do with these plates is you want to make sure that they fit well. What we want to do is we want to take them, and this intersection between these joints needs to be fairly smooth. You don't want it to be real tight. If it's really tight, I would take the time to work it through, or get yourself a sandpaper or a file and slightly take down the insides of these slots. There's so many slots here that are engaging on each other. We don't want it to be tight, because if it's too tight, we'll break some tabs when we put it together. So spend a minute prepping these plates to make sure that when you put them together, they go together cleanly without a lot of force. So see, that slides together nicely. That one slides together nicely, and you can kind of pivot them because they're mounted on a bit of an angle. And then this fourth one here Slides together nicely. So make sure those all fit together nicely before we start this process. So next is, those are the 4 plates. Now, these plates are your verticals on the palm. So this plate comes first. It's going to go in the first set of slots. And the side with the notches in the hole, that is the thumb side. So we can lay that plate there to call it the thumb side. Now we need to look at these 2 plates. These are kind of hard to determine which side is where. The best thing that I've found is there is, find something to point with here. There are these first lugs sticking up on each side. And if you look at the lug and then you look at the flat next to the lug, you'll find that one of the flats is longer and one of the flats is shorter. And I have highlighted this in the exploded view diagram so you know, so you can see where I'm talking about. But little flat right here, just on the inside, it corresponds to this tab on the palm plates. And you can see this tab is wider than this tab. So, look for your wider flat next to the lug, and that becomes the thumb side of your plate. So I can also tell by the fact that this triangle is a little bit bigger on the thumb side, where this triangle is a little smaller. So either way works. I'm going to go ahead and build with the plate for making the arm, because these videos continue on as we put together the arm, but your plate may look like that without the extra holes. So we're going to put that one there. And lastly are these 2 little brackets. They just go down here at the bottom. They'll get fitted in as we go. Okay, so first thing I want to do is pick up your main plate, and then I usually like to start with this plate right here. It's on the center, on the thumb side. And basically, if you just look, you can basically see the tabs. You got 2 lugs here, and then 2 wider lugs, and you can see the 2 wider lugs right here. So basically, we're just going to key this on here. And it should just slide in. It might be a little tight. Might take a little wiggling. Take your time on these. You don't want to knock off the corners. If you do accidentally knock off the corner of one of these lugs, it's not a big deal. The part still works fine. But it's just, take your time and you shouldn't have a problem. So I like to put that plate on, and then I'll switch to the one next to it. And now basically what you want to do is you just want to push these plates straight down onto each part. One key thing when putting these plates on this little piece, you do not want to squeeze out here. If you squeeze hard right here, you'll snap off this lower brace. So what I do is I'll reach my finger in the thumb screw hole and squeeze there very gently, or you can squeeze out on the edges. But basically what you're doing is you're just trying to work these plates down, never squeezing there, until they sit flush. You want to look along this line right here and make sure you don't see a gap. Now you'll also notice that you just kind of have to push the plates together to line them up here. So that one's on, and you just want to work one at a time because they're all at different angles, so you can't push them all together at once. So then we'll work on this outer plate. One on, and then I'll work on the thumb plate. And again, don't squeeze. Okay. All right. So that kind of lays in there. Now, next will be your back plate. Again, larger triangle, larger flat goes to the thumb side. Now on this plate, you actually want to, instead of pushing it in from the front, that doesn't really work because the plates are all at an angle. You want to bring this plate in from the back. So you just kind of bring it up where it needs to be. And you just kind of slide it in from the back. And it'll just key down in there. Again, these 2 notches right here, those are for the wrist parts. If you're building just a hand, those will be filled in. Okay? Once you get that plate in there, and stuff is either going to be tight or slightly loose, it doesn't really matter, just as long as it all goes together. We'll glue it all in a minute. Now what we have is these little braces. Now what the brace that looks like an L fits over here. I've flipped this part over so you can see the notches represent the thumb, so always remember the thumb side. So this L goes on here pointing towards the thumb. And if you just kind of lay it on here, you'll see it's got its own little place to key into there. And it'll fall right into position. Again, a notch for the thing. And then we've got the other plate. Now this plate's a little tougher. You got to kind of set it on there and flip it a couple times and find the way that it fits. It's wider on the bottom than it is on the top, but just flip it around until you find the place where it wants to just drop right in. All right. And those plates drop right in. Okay.